Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello everyone, my name is Umar Hamid. I'm your host on the No Limit Selling podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategy, and advice on how you can become better, stronger, faster. Just before we get started, I've got a question for you. Do you have a negative voice inside your head? We all do, right? I'm going to help you remove that voice in under 30 days guaranteed. Not only remove it, but transform it. So instead of the voice that sabotages you, there's one that propels you to much higher levels of performance and success. There's a link in the show notes. Click on it to find out more. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Today, I've got the privilege of having Mike Saunders here today. He is the authority aficionado. If you want authority in your space, Mike is the guy to talk to. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Umar. Good to be here. Happy to chat with you today.
Man, your voice sounds like you could be a radio announcer.
Well, I've actually gotten that for many years. Even I distinctly remember the first time someone said that was when I had my first job out of college working at a rental car company. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I do. But I do have my own podcast. I've done 560 episodes, so I'm very fluent in talking with a microphone.
Brilliant. So one of the things we're talking about is very much how to get authority, because the reality is if you're a celebrity, also known as an authority in your field, that the world bends over backwards for you. And when you're not, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter whether you own your own business or you're a salesperson working for a company. People need to realize something that it really is one of these iconic phrases. People want to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Well, how do they get to know you? Well, that's networking. How do they get to like you? That's developing relationships. And then how do they trust you? Well, sometimes that aspect of developing trust is a matter of being seen as trustworthy. Maybe being seen as that expert. Like, here's an example. What if I said, I've got the greatest solution to whatever that you need. Go ahead and email me at mikesaunders@aol.com. You'd go,
Crickets.
You're
Crickets.
stuck in
No
the
one's
dark
going to come to
ages.
you.
Yeah, I mean, forget about that. So you've got to have a positioning in the mind of your prospects that shows that you know what you're talking about.
Dig deeper into that in a moment. I just wanted to share a life experience I had. For charity, I decided I would scale down a building, like rappel down. And it was really high up, and it seemed really cool thing to do in theory. But when I went up on top of the building and they're putting on this harness stuff on me, and all of a sudden it's like, I don't know these people. But because I trusted the director of the Baltimore chapter of the National Kidney Foundation, that I leveraged her trust into these people to allow me to do that. And my illusion is when you develop authority in what you do, it lets the customer leverage your trust to make that decision.
100%. And here's an example. I had this person I was interviewing on my podcast a couple years ago, and he had immigrated from another country. I believe it was Israel. And he gave me this example. And he said, when I came to this country, I knew I need to get an immigration attorney. And I knew that I needed to get it done really quickly. So I started asking my network. So I got some referrals. And this one person told me, oh, here's the card of this guy that I want to, that I would recommend to you. And then this other friend of his said, here's this card of someone. In fact, he's giving a keynote speech down at this luncheon at the chamber this weekend. And he goes, okay, cool. I'm going to call this one and I'm going to go see this one. So he went to the luncheon, he listened to the immigration attorney speak, and the one that had the business card said free consultations. The one that gave the keynote speech said, we charge for our consultations $100. He chose to pay the money, and he said, I found myself trusting this person more. And why? He goes, because he was up there speaking. Now, that is how people are wired. We are wired to see people in the limelight, not the CNN, limelight. You don't have to be that. But if you get a speaking engagement, live or virtual, it doesn't matter. If you're speaking to a group, they tend to trust you a little bit more. If you're being interviewed or have your own podcast, they tend to trust you a little bit more. If you use a book and go, hey, you know what? As we wrap up our call or our meeting today, I'm going to leave a copy of my book. read through this. And then when we meet next time, we can go over some of my recommendations. Now, all of a sudden, they know you're not a hack trying to give them a trifold glossy brochure. That's all that you have.
And the thing is, like when you are speaking, you need to be intelligent. You don't need to be perfect, but you need to have the right intentions being up there. Because some people are up there and it's like blatant that I'm here selling to you and I'm trying to get customers, and you can just pick up that vibe. So let's backtrack a little bit because I think it all starts with I'm not sure if you know this, Mike, but my baby is beautiful. It's the most beautiful baby in the world. And if you looked at it, you'd kind of go, that's an ugly baby. So oftentimes when you're helping people, whatever they're selling, whatever they're doing, they pitch it in a certain way that makes sense to them. But you have to go, well, that's not going to work for other people. So tell me about one of those times where you helped somebody position what they were doing in a way that got people more attracted to it.
I teach people to say, okay, we've heard expert and authority, and you cannot say you are the expert and authority because people don't want to hear that, right? You need to exude that. You need to have the confidence of being that expert and authority. And it needs to be done in the right manner. So the way to solve it, which is answering your question, is this. You need to be the educator and the advocate for your target audience. So whatever you sell, whatever, service, product, doesn't matter. Don't sell, don't tell, educate, teach, and show the misconceptions, the pros and the cons, all of these things, right? Have you ever read the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes?
I am actually listening to it for the 20th time, probably.
Okay, well,
started yesterday again.
So then the answer would be yes times 100. So yeah, he was one of the first ones that kind of created the concept of don't be pushy, pull people toward you, teach, be an educator. And so what happens is when you do that, the other salespeople that are pitching your prospect, they're pushy and they're telling, and then they get attracted to you because it's like, man, you just seem like you know what you're talking about because you explain kind of the pros and the cons and how it might not work and how it does work and to consider this. And hey, here's this report that we see online that would help you make your decision. And who are they going to choose? The guy that's just pounding them to say buy now, or the one that's going, hey, you ought to consider this. So when you can be the educator and the advocate and they see your authority, because here's something really interesting. The message is the medium. I like to use this kind of like, the message is the medium, meaning this. Let's say that you're selling, widget A, and you know that you really have the best widget to solve their needs, and you don't want to be that salesperson. You want to educate. Well, you can, craft this wonderful educational piece of content, whatever that might be. Let's just call it an article, and it's like the manifesto on why people need to choose you for this widget thing. And you hand it to someone as a piece of paper. That's nice. Or you put it up on your Facebook as a post. People kind of yawn at that because it's like, Facebook. Or you could put it up on your website, on your WordPress website. People yawn at that because it's like, whatever, a blog post. But what if that same piece of content was a chapter in a book that you're handing them and they go, hey, I was just featured in this book called Expert Profiles. I talk about that exact topic that you were mentioning. Read through this chapter here and then let's talk next week. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, really? Okay.
You're an author.
Or the content in that, manifesto, let's say you were interviewed about that on a podcast. So now you could have gone Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and people yawn because it's like anyone could do that, right? It's very entry low, free, but they don't appreciate that as much as, oh, you were interviewed on this podcast and you're going to let me listen to that episode and I can on my own time make my own thoughts, and then you follow it up and go, hey, what did you think? The medium where that message is, that platform is so
carries authority.
It carries authority and it positions you so powerfully. And none of these things need to take a lot of time or cost a lot of money.
Brilliant. But you still got to have the right messaging to get onto the medium. So how do you help people craft? It's like, hey, I sell insurance and I want to come on your show. It's like, thanks, but no thanks. So how do you get them to be, or do you get them to articulate who they are so they stand out amongst the crowd, and then from that they leverage mediums and write books?
I think that that's going to come with time, and they have to have a full understanding of their target audience and their solution to the problem that their target audience has. And using as an example, life insurance. Nobody wants to buy life insurance, but I remember years ago this example, so maybe you'll appreciate this. what if I said, hey, Umar, I've got something really interesting for you. And and this is really real. I've got this machine that I want to bring over to your house, and I'm going to lease it to you. And I'm going to put it down in the basement, and it cranks out $100 bills. And it's not counterfeit, it's $100 bills. Now, it's fictitious, obviously, story. But if you knew that this was $100 bills, not counterfeit, and we're going to be cranking them out downstairs 24/7, and you said I'm gonna lease it to you. Yeah, I'm gonna pay you that, and then maybe I charge you a little bit more for the maintenance package because once a month I need to come out and I need to make sure everything's greased up and everything right, so you keep getting those $100 bills. You would go, yeah, I didn't sell you anything. I provided you, money. Well, life insurance is the same way. You are protecting the machine that makes money. You. If you die, you don't make money to support your family. So I'm putting this thing in place called a life insurance policy. We'll talk about variables and all that. And I'm going to charge you a little bit of money so that it preserves things for you now and later in case something happens so your family's taken care of. Now, I don't sell life insurance, never have, but I just loved that example. So to answer your question, Umar, how do you articulate your messaging? That's an art form, and it takes practice and it takes time, and you have to, draw people into a story so they go, oh yeah. So whatever it is that you sell, you need to know how to talk about it, but then you need to be able to talk about it on the right platforms to get noticed.
Brilliant. And I think a couple of things you did there was you got a metaphor that everyone understands. I want that $100 machine, and I would pay anything less than what the machine is going to pump out. So that makes sense. And then using that as a metaphor that people understand and want, and equating it to what you're selling is a great way to communicate what you're doing. And I think it's an art form, and it is an ongoing process of crafting that message and refining as you go.
100%.
So
And guess what you got to do? You got to test it, see who responds. And you're always tweaking. You're always, like as an example, here's something else in wordsmithing, in copywriting and messaging. I can help you increase your business from X to Y. Well, maybe psychologically you don't feel like you want help. I'm not broken. So the better word is empower. Hey, I empower entrepreneurs to, and so now that kind of feels way better because you don't need help. You're not broken. So it's just
awesome.
learning how to kind of use the right phrasing and wording and things like that.
Learning human psychology, because at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about is, how can you get authority in your space? And the real way you get it is by doing a lot of it.
Yeah.
And the only way you can get to do a lot of it is if people see you as an authority and they give you at-bats to do it. So it's the chicken and the egg conundrum. And you help people accelerate that process so they get a level of authority that they can actually start doing more, making more money, helping more people, getting better at their craft.
100%. That's what as the authority positioning coach, that's what I help people do. Be seen as that expert and that authority so that it makes them be the obvious choice to their target audience. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
I want you to profile two people for me. Two real people, don't mention their names. One person that came and they got help from you, they got authorized, and then they used it in the correct way to leverage their brand, leverage their business. Walk us through that example. Then I'm going to ask you for a counter example, somebody that you led to the water, but they would not drink. So let's go with the first one first.
Well, the first one is an example. I'm working with a company now, and I put together this PowerPoint, and I'm like, well, hey, let's show this example of what this will do to help you out. Well, I pulled up this case study because I've got hundreds of testimonials. I've got about a dozen case studies. So I pulled one up in the financial services industry, which is what I'm working in with this client. And so here's this client. He's an independent rep. He contacted me. He said, I need help with all of this. And so I said, wonderful. I'm going to do something for you that will take 20 minutes of your time. That's it, on the phone. And I'm going to turn it into this powerful package and teach you how to use it. He's like, got me so far. Cool. So I interviewed him on my podcast, and I spotlighted his business, what set him apart, what makes him so special, what he does for clients, why people should listen to him. And then he loved it, right? Okay, we hung up after 20 minutes, and I sent him a few days later the link to the podcast, all the syndications where it went, made a little podcast graphic, and then I wrote up a press release that showed his name and his company spotlighted on my podcast, and he approved the press release because I had already written it up, and he approved that, and then I got it into syndication. And so that was wonderful. And then I took the interview that he did and I transcribed it and cleaned it up and smoothed it out so it read nice and smooth. And I turned that into a featured chapter in my Amazon bestselling book series called Expert Profiles. And all of this was done in about a 2-week period with him doing one thing, a 20-minute phone call. And I delivered this package back to him, showed him how to use it. And the case study that he sent back to me and the example was, hey, I just want to let everyone know that what Mike does is affordable, makes sense, is powerful, and here's what it did for me. I was meeting with this couple about their financial planning, and of course, it's very competitive, so I left a copy of the book with them, and the next day they called me and hired me because they said, I learned things about you from this book that I never would have before. And in his testimony, he was like, I've never had that happen before, and I now have the tools to make myself look like that expert. And all that was done quickly in a 2-week time frame and simply with a 20-minute phone interview. So it's how you use it. And then I guess the antithesis is this. You can lead the horse to water, you can't make him drink. So I can do all of that. And I can say, here's this package, and I do a coaching call after this package is done, and I teach them, okay, for this and this and this, here's how to implement it in your business. Simple ways, things you're already doing, how to integrate what you're already doing and integrate these in, not a whole new thing. Just here's how you can use this. And all I can do is give it to you. I can't make you do it. I can't do it for you because I don't have the incoming emails from people to say, thank you for booking this call with me. But here's an example. Here's an example of how to implement that. Let's say that you have this booking call with someone for a week from next Tuesday, and you're going to be meeting by phone or in person, and it's to learn about whatever you sell, right? Whatever the package is. And now all of a sudden you send them the email going, hey, your appointment is booked. It's scheduled and confirmed. Look forward to meeting with you. Oh, by the way, in the meantime, between now and the time we meet, thought you might like to take a listen to this podcast interview I was interviewed on. And here's a couple media mentions where I picked up. And then here's a link to my my book that I mentioned where you can read about my blah, 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 blah. Did they listen to every syllable of the podcast interview? Probably not. Did they read every word? Probably not. But the fact that it was there and they clicked on it and they're like, okay, that's legitimate. Now you go to that meeting, phone or in person, and they view you not as a salesperson, but as a trusted advisor. So it's how you pre-frame yourself. It's all in how you use things. So yeah, the one example was Rockstar. He just put it into action. The antithesis is you got to do it. You got to do simple things to build your business. Well, isn't that way better than doing a blast email and sending out, a PowerPoint presentation? Yeah, these are powerful tools. You just have to learn how to use them in your business.
Absolutely. And I think just adding to sending out a link to the podcast with the tools you have nowadays, you can actually know when the person's listening to it.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like they're listening to it right now, and I'm going to send them one other piece of the press release. Oh, this was in this article, and all of a sudden they get oh my God, it must be divine intervention. I got this.
Yeah.
When he was doing that. So how much does it cost to play to have a package like that?
It all depends on how what levels you want, but I've got a basic package that I call Authority Boost, where I do the interview, the multimedia press release and syndication, and the coaching call. $497. Simple. I mean, that's easy.
Go to the full Monty. What does the full Monty look like?
The full one that I mentioned there, where you do the interview, the press release, and then the featured chapter in the book, is $1,597. That's very, very unbelievable.
So I can spend $5,000 or $10,000 in advertising, and maybe I get some leads. I spend a fraction of that and get authority, and all of a sudden I'm seen as a different person. It's like a freaking no-brainer, right?
And I'll take it one step further. You can spend the $5,000 or whatever for some Facebook or Google ads that get you maybe a lead or junk or whatever. But guess what happens when you stop paying that machine? Poof, the ads go away. Now, here's something really interesting. Yes, to your point, it's a no-brainer. $1,500 for that full package, and you've got tangible assets. And here's another thing: Google indexes the podcast interview,
Press release.
the press
Mhm.
release. And so now here comes people Googling you because maybe you're in whatever industry and they Google your name and your business and they want to see what's up. And they see this interview, they see this. Now that's long term. I call them authority positioning assets. That's not a poof ad campaign. That's an asset that Google is positioning that you can use
Deliver.
forever down the road. And that example of the financial services guy that I mentioned, I did this for this presentation and I Googled his name and business. This was about 2 weeks ago. And I did the screenshot, and there were three listings on Google page one for his name and his business. Because if someone were to Google him, what are they going to see? Well, they see his website, his LinkedIn, of course. But they saw the interview I did with him. They saw the press release I did with him. And they see another link for another interview where someone else picked it up on page one of Google. And I did that interview a year and a half ago. So it's got long-term legs. And I think that becomes something that you go, hold on. We're blowing money on these campaigns that who knows what we're getting, or we could get a tangible long-term asset that we can use right now in our business so that people view us differently. And we can now have more at-bats and more effective at-bats and close more sales.
Brilliant. Mike, thanks so much for coming on the show. You summed up exactly how we can all get more authority, get more sales, and hopefully get more happiness out of life.
You got it. Would it be all right if I left my website address?
Please do, but we're going to put it in the show notes so people can click on it, complete with a mugshot of you.
Oh, that's scary. Well, you can go to authoritypositioningcoach.com and learn more about my program. There's a little download. You can download the Authority Positioning Manifesto, which is a 52-page PDF that is just chock full of helpful tips, and that'd be really wonderful to learn from.
Brilliant. Once again, thanks so much.
Thanks, Umar.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.